I would ask you to get your phone out. Normally we ask you to not use your phone, but this afternoon we will do the opposite. So, we're doing an interactive debate, so but the good thing to do is to go to menti.com, the website menti.com, if you'd like to play along with us. Okay, alright, you go to menti.com, and if you get there on that web page, you enter the code 347731. Who's in? Please put your arm in the air. Who's struggling? Okay, people help each other. So, let's see if this works. This is the first question. So, and the code to get there is still on top of the page. Just try to answer the question, where do you live? Let me see one. Kent, Cote, Italy, welcome. Spain, thank you. Armagh. Is it pronounced like this? Armagh?
Yeah.
That's Scottish, no? Yeah? Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. So, very interesting. So, it gives a view on who's here. We're going to have some parts in the discussions, and we start each discussion with this kind of question. So, let's get over to the first question, first round. The first round is about the heritage and the regulations. In the speech of the bookstore, we heard already about regulations, which aren't quite that strong. So the question is, to what extent should heritage be protected by the government? Not at all. The government should focus on the most important heritage sites. The government should focus on all types of heritage. So it could be expected today that not many people would give us the first option. It's like all Catholics in one church. So we're quite divided on this matter, dear panel, and I would first ask the question to someone in development, Mr. Waas. The question is, do Flemish and local authorities, do they offer sufficient flexibility in the development of heritage? Because you showed us many examples which many people would say this is a bit strong. This is strong invasion in heritage, but on the other hand, I guess the heritage is safe. But do you feel flexible enough when you want to do your job?
Well, it makes life easier when you know the new function. So everything starts with when you have a good idea, which is realistic. Then our experience is we can walk a path together with all the authorities. And but if you don't know yet what function you will give to a building, this is extremely difficult, because then it's hard to get exceptions, because you don't know yet what it will be in the future. So for us it's important to wait also until we have the right function. And for example, in the old military hospital in Antwerp, we have put every old building which has a significant importance, we put it in another company, small company. So we invested in long term until we had the right function, because in the beginning we knew we could not have yet, for example, for the cloister. In the beginning it would not be realistic 12 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago to already find the right investor. And so we had given time. So that's important, time, and to look to the new function, and then it's good to get the authorities with you, to walk the path, to find the changes which are needed to give life again to that interesting building. What is difficult is that that's the combination with other authorities. So, for example, the Generale Staf, the biggest building, we were really in a catch-22 because we could not have housing in the apartment because we needed to get terraces, balconies on the apartments. And on the other hand, the heritage, they said, yeah, it's an ideal building to get offices in it, but the city in Antwerp said we cannot have in the city center all buildings with more than 1,500 square meters of offices anymore. So we really had a big difficulty to get the right combination of those two. And then we get the exception for this new legislation in Antwerp for all buildings. So that's now in the legal, it's a very good thing that the minister has changed and has given the possibility to get exceptions for heritage buildings on other legislation. So that was really necessary.
Okay, that's the same question for Mr. Maillot, because in the inverse, at the time, people of monuments, they were people who were busy with the regulations, but as I have the feeling while you were presenting that you tried to be in more dialogue mode. It's what Mr. Waas just said. Is this a new kind of policy that you try to, like Leiedal, go a bit, do not make your decisions when all plans are being delivered to a municipality, but try to build a dialogue on before. Is this the new tendency?
I don't know if it is a new tendency. It's a tendency. I always try to have a good dialogue with the client. I think also my colleagues try to do that. I don't know if things has changed. Things have changed because in the beginning of monuments protection in France, we only had a few, and they were the big monuments. They were the cathedrals, the beginnages, the tunnels. Today, the number of monuments is bigger and also more multi-diverse, and that's a problem because when you list a monument, it's listed, but at that time, often you don't know what it will become within 20 years. But the protection has been made 20 years ago. So I always plead to have a very flexibility in the protection, not to fix all the things, but to make us also able to go with the owner in a good direction.
There are two owners, but maybe take the other microphone if you want. You had plans to make a bookstore. Were there things you wanted to do but not allowed to do? And does this put your plans in another perspective?
We were talking about times that have changed. We took on a dialogue pretty early in the process when we had the plans to move into the casino building. The most important part for us was we wanted to move in with our family, and the casino building was not built to have a house. There was no bathroom, there was no kitchen. It had been offices, it had been a boys' school for a very, very long time. But we took on the dialogue with Erfgoed, with the city of Kortrijk very early on in the stage. The only thing, we took them on a tour and we explained what we wanted to do with the building and what was important for us. And they went along and they understood our ideas and our vision. The only thing that we still kind of regret to the day today is you have seen it in the pictures, and I think you will come by later on a walk and we will show you that we have a huge hall with a very big lighting. It is 2 meters diameter, and we had to take one off because we had to straighten out a wall to make our kitchen. And our plans were that we could sell this one lighting that is 2 meters diameter and that is very old, and we would have liked it. The money that we would have raised by selling the lighting, we would have used to to put the old hall in the original state, because we found the old wallpaper behind the wallpaper that is there now, and now the chandelier is dismantled and in boxes on the attic, and that for us, we have to do this on a private basis, so we have to, it is just Pascal and I, and although he's very good in numbers, that for us is, as of today, it is very difficult, because we could have used the money to put the hall in its old glory. That's the only thing.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Van Havenbeke, you were director of an intermunicipal body. You showed us a very impressive map of buildings with not heritage buildings, but with a historical status. Isn't it very difficult even for small municipalities? Because we heard the examples of the city of Kortrijk, the city of Antwerp, where you may expect a kind of guidance, a kind of dialogue, where you even are not allowed to do things, or you have some guidance from Flemish government. But on the other hand, you have all those small municipalities, and then you may question, isn't this the suited level to take this kind of decisions?
I think about the list of valuable cultural, historical valuable buildings, it sure is the level to do it. I think the authorities should be preoccupied as well, the Flemish government as the local ones should be preoccupied as well about the whole heritage spectrum. But in different scales. We talked about these big monuments, so that's clear. That's the responsibility of the Flemish government. On the other hand, I think that the way that the historical growth of a village or a city is built up by all these different valuable buildings, and before interfering, you should know where to go, but you should also understand how reality works. We did this concept for the first time on the coast side, and why there? Because you have a lot of development, and especially of second residences, where you have this problem of do you keep this valuable heritage or not? So that there it was urgent. And I think it's good for all the parties, as well as the authorities, as the owners of these buildings, to know where to go and to speak out loud what they think about, but to give a direction. Because you need this dialogue, I think you should do it on the local level. It's clear that some communities here are not able to do it alone, and in this sense, it's good that we are organizing this support for these authorities.
Mr. Linders, so we heard people from private development, people from several authorities, but as a kind of defender of industrial heritage, what should government really do? Should they just regulate? Should they finance? What's the best word for you from government?
It's not or, but and. They have to stimulate, to give ideas, to give the good examples. That's very important.
That's what we're
doing. If you don't give the good examples, you can do anything with money. With regulations, you won't have any success. From my experience, I think if people from both sides, the developer, the owner, and the public authorities are open for dialogue and take time for dialogue, you find good solutions. Time is not money, but time is quality. And there are things which have changed. When I started as a civil servant at the Historic Buildings Department in 1975, we worked with the old law of 1931, which was 3 pages of legislation. If I look today at the recent law which has been voted, I think it's more than 150 pages. That's the difference. Who is reading this? Who is understanding it? I have problems with it. When the new legislation was in preparation, there was a public hearing in the parliament. And I remember two very important things that were said. One coming from Holland, and they said, we gave more power to the local authorities, it becomes a disaster because the knowledge, the experience in the local authorities is not available. So you have to do something to train them, to give them the necessary knowledge. And another one came from England. They say in England, the local authorities, they have very big power in heritage. But if they make a mistake, or if there is a danger of making a mistake, very strong local heritage and preservation societies, they come into action and they can change the opinion. So it's always an and. You need local people, you need knowledge, you need dialogue and cooperation, which is important.
That's a nice summary of our first round. Are there any urgent questions on the matter of regulations from people in the room? No? Let's continue to our second question. Important heritage should stay in public hands. This is the only way it will remain accessible to the public. Do you agree or disagree? So we are for strong, quite strong disagree. Who said it should stay in public hands? Who said? Who? Can you explain why? Yeah, important, yeah. Okay, let's continue on this. I would ask it to Mr. Cousy. What's the role of publicness in keeping heritage alive? What would you answer on this kind of question? I know.
Can you repeat the question?
If important heritage should stay in the hands of the public, that they should maybe have a public function.
This is certainly a good thing, because if there is no finance for keeping it good, it's always a problem. But it's not obligatory that government should do things in heritage. I met a lot of people who were not public and who did something private. I think it's how do you do the project? What is the meaning of the project? If it's a huge, I think now at the Winter Circus in Ghent, for example, okay, this is so huge thing that it's almost not possible to do this in private, but there are a lot of people who want to do something interesting also in private, so it gives more guarantee that something happens, because for the private, it's what I feel is always that if you go in discussion for a project in this kind of situation, there is always administration is very anxious. Perhaps now it changed for me because I have a certain age, so we did some projects where we can prove, but there's also, when it's private, administration are anxious. They say, oh, is it not for their gain that they do it? What will we have of it? But I must say we have a very good relationship with all the administrations we worked for, but it needs also from them a certain coming back to you. It is not so simple to keep something. You have to do more than that, so the creativity of the partner, we are then partners of administration, you have to give a possibility to the creativity to have solutions, perhaps not only by keeping it, but adding some values. I think about, you talked about the heritage at the seaside. We have an
now a building under construction at the seaside. It's the only oldest building on the sea who exists there. But keeping this building just as keeping it has no sense. We have added, with administration of heritage, we have added a tower of 10 stories behind the monument so that the monument can be restored. But this is creativity of both partners. We are the partners who think about this idea, we present to them to have their building saved, and we can make a function by this new element. So we have the impression that the creativity together with them should bring the solution. But in private and in private situation, there is some people are afraid that they should bring some solutions that are just for them a solution and not for everybody. So this is a problem that exists in our situation.
All right, thank you for this answer, but let's take the questioning a bit further, because we have this question. Heritage is always on the losing end when opposed to projects which are deemed to have an economic importance. We know when you have that kind of questions, it's always grey, but if it would be grey, we won't have green and blue in this screen. Thank you for those who have been preparing the questions, because if everyone says the same, so we have a clear division in the room between two opinions. And Adrian, you want to respond on this?
I think that the opinion is very different from the culture from where you are coming. Economic value, it's not necessarily losing heritage value. A couple of years ago, we made a book together with the Agence d'Urbanisme of Lille on adaptive reuse in the area, the Grand, which is Belgium and the north of France. And what struck me in it is that the difference in approach. We had some 350 buildings which were reused, which we listed, and then we made a choice of 53 buildings. And the difference between France and Belgium was that in France, none of the buildings which was reused were protected by law. But almost all the projects were done by authorities or semi-official authorities. In Belgium, most of the buildings were protected by law, for example in Kortrijk and so on. And the initiative was taken by private people. So just the border means the difference. And if you go through Europe, you see that the local culture in Spain, Italy, Germany, England is different. If you go to England, they have much more buildings listed. I think that England, without Wales and Scotland, has some 600,000 buildings listed grade 1 and grade 2. If you compare this with Flanders, we have to be very humble. We have very few buildings protected. In the city of Amsterdam, there are 25,000 buildings protected. I think in Flanders we have 12,000 buildings protected. So who pays also, he decides on the future of the building. That's something you have to realize. If you have to reuse a coal mine like Bering and Waterslee, Winterslag, which I know very well, who is going to pay for it? And if you invest so much money, you want a return from it. That return is more important than the cost, which we have learned in England from experiences there.
In that case, because there's so much, can you save everything, and can you find a new function for everything?
You can't save everything. You have to make a choice. I don't want to save every old brewery. That's impossible. We can't save every old church. That's also something. But if you say we want to knock down a church, everybody is opposing it against it. If you say somebody is wanting to knock down an old brewery, well, it's derelict, just let it go. I think 60% of the subsidies in Flanders go to the keeping and restoration of churches and religious buildings. 40% for all the rest, the castles, the mining sites, the industrial buildings, the housing. Is that normal? Just ask a question.
That's the second question I'm going to ask, and I'm coming back to the money issue, but according to you, which type of heritage are popular in heritage redevelopment? So you have 100% and you can give 10, 20, 30. While you are voting, I'm going to ask the question to Mr. Waas. Because in all the examples we often see, it's mainly about the 19th century building, the major hospitals, the lost life buildings. And then you showed us the gym, which is a nice restaurant anyway. But I could pay the costs of heating that kind of building. What are the restraints for developers, and what makes some or other sites more attractive to redevelop in terms of cost efficiency and economic development?
Of course, when we talk about durability, sustainability and so on, it's true that the embedded energy of a building, it's recently that at least they think about it. I think it only look at the energy cost, it's really something which has over-focused. And I don't have a problem in paying more for energy if due to the fantastic building you get a lot more in return. So the return of a building, it's indeed the financial thing which is important, but if you enter, it's now the gym, or you enter in Yper, the Picanol, it gives something. It's here also, you feel the history, you feel the identity that those buildings give to a new function, and that's a lot more important. I believe in the future also, the added value, also economically.
Yeah, I understand, but if you see the Picanol City, you can see a structure which is quite, I know it wasn't an easy process, but it's a structure that lends itself quite easily to the redevelopment. If we look at the French castles abandoned everywhere in France, you just see structures that are in abundance, that are not easy to fix, and I would think a developer wouldn't think about this kinds of buildings.
Yeah, but you have nice examples of, for example, a bunker, where they cut the bunker in two and put glass in between. Those are things we should, that's good architects. You need good architects who give and to try to, I call it also littekens, and there I'm so, the discussions we had of making some adjustments on buildings, like for example in military hospital in Ostend, it was not easy to put an erker or a glass thing now in Antwerp. For example, the doors that we want to replace, the doors from the Poortgebouw by glass, for example. I think it's so crucial for the new function that we should do it, because I don't understand those discussions, because if you don't do it, you don't get a right function, new function. So we should really try to think more out of the box with heritage. I stress on that, out of the box thinking with heritage. It seems a contradiction, but it's not at all a contradiction. And we should, with public-private participation, to answer the previous question with the government, I don't believe that the government at itself can give good ideas. I'm sorry, it's a process. So you need to have public private participation, projects, to neighborhoods involvement, like in Barcelona, like you get more and more ideas now. You look at what the ODAM, the initiative, which unfortunately in Antwerp didn't continue, but you see that there are new initiatives coming up of participation. And if we then combine that with out-of-the-box thinking from the governance side, I think we will go to fantastic new redevelopments.
Same question for your left neighbor, because you referred to it in your presentation, and we see it again in the numbers. Yes, redevelopment is maybe something related to cities, but what about abandoned heritage in the rural areas? And let's say more the rural areas, because here in Kortrijk region we don't have really rural areas, but the real rural areas, what could be the future of them? Because they are maybe not that suited for redevelopment with an economic function. You can put bookstores in every church in the region here.
It's a difficult question. But I think also in the rural area, it should be possible to find a new function. And it has, as my neighbor has already said, it's a good thing that legislation made it possible to give more functions to protected or to listed monuments. Because, and that's the way we look at it, if the function suits the building, then it should be possible to give it to have that function in it. And
you're convinced that we're going to find enough functions?
I'm not convinced. I'm not saying that it is easy, but I'm saying it's worth trying, and I think it should be possible.
I'll ask the director of Leiedal, because there are also some small municipalities in the region, and
surely there is a rural part in this region, and our colleagues
I made a comparison to the French rules.
This morning they all visited Spiegel Kane and the swimming pool, and there you can see that's not evident to restore a building but not having any function anymore as a swimming pool. So I join the idea that with public partners, with private partners, also with the community itself, your time is quality. So you should yourself giving time to create a process in thinking about how would we like to reuse this site, and not just put concrete in the swimming pool because you don't want to have wet feet. So in a short time. So I think you have to give yourself more time. We are working on this second part, the landscape. After this exercise we are doing, and this open area, the heritage in this open area, in this rural area, is very important, and we are looking to forward to discuss about the reuse of some farmer buildings, for example, but also other interesting little factories in the rural area for the next years.
Adriaan, you wanted to read this?
I'm a historian, and what strikes me is that in the Ancien regime, before the Industrial Revolution, there was no separation between a house, living, and working. People worked in the same place as where they were living. That's something which is changing again because of the modern ICT technology. I have meetings with people in Spain, Lyon, and so on, through Skype. I don't have to move anymore. I know people in the middle of nowhere in the south of France who have their business, and they just work from home. That's something we have to realize, that the way in which we are working is fundamentally changing today. The second thing which is important to this, it's public transport.
Why is this changing?
It's modern technology which is changing the way of life of people. We can chat with everybody all over the world without any problem. When we established the International Committee for Industrial Archaeology in 1978, what were the possibilities we had? We could write a letter to the United States, we could send a fax didn't exist even. You could go to a telex at the post office, or you could phone, which was extremely expensive. Today, the new systems make this possible. I don't have a car anymore. I don't use it anymore. I use public transport and I use Cambio, which is car sharing. And I see more and more young people doing it. In Kortrijk, I use a bicycle. So the way of living and organizing work is changing. And civil servants, they don't have to go to the office every day anymore. You can work from home. My nephew, he is working in a very big company, he's working from home. He's not going to the office anymore.
Yeah, okay. In the meanwhile, I let the panel think about my last question. I'm going to ask you to pronounce a kind of wish or statement or something which we can take with us if we go back to oral places in Italy and Spain as a kind of personal wish from your side, and especially in terms of heritage, but you can pronounce other things.
Just something to add, that we have the buildings are the hardware, but also for heritage it's extremely important that we find ways to think together on the software part, on how you will make something livable, because the working and everything, it's not anymore a building for one function, and that's why we try in the future, but legislation is very difficult on that, because it's monofunctionally taught in the past. This is for working, this is for living, this is for shopping, and we should really get out of this, and probably heritage gives an opportunity now because of this new way of combining functions, but we should add a process of participation of the software. Like Transfo, it's a fantastic building. It's dangerous what I will say now because I'm in the heart of Transfo. But I miss the software part. It's all good, but if there won't be a huge cooperation of artists, of software who organizes activities, it's a shame of the money which is put in it. So, and that's, we should prioritize the things, and then I go more towards the cities, because there's so much heritage in the cities which is neglected, and that's really a pity, because we need the young people will go to the cities. They want to work, live, play in the city, and they love heritage.
I'm gonna ask you, because you live in the building you bought, and you even have more ambition with this site, but what's the importance of heritage? Could it have been in other sites, or does the fact that you're living in a heritage site give an added value? And can you explain why it had to be that building, or did it rather have to be an industrial company? And this
there wasn't any plan B, so it has to be that building.
Okay.
We live and we work in that building. We love and admire the building, but can I come back on the economic importance? Yeah. It is funded 100% privately. Yeah. There are regulations. They are what they are. But we want to work and live as efficient as possible. And one of the things that costs a lot of money is the heating in such a building. And we are asking, we would like to put solar panels on the building. And there isn't a framework today. So that's something that for us is a bit annoying.
You are not allowed to put solar panels on top of that building?
We can put them in it, but not on the most efficient place.
Because of the heritage regulations?
Yeah.
Okay. It's an interesting one. You wanted to continue?
I was was just going to say what it feels like to live and to work in a building like that. You feel welcomed by we felt welcomed by the building from the very first moment we walked in. And it is a very huge building, especially if the store closes and you have to go get your laundry and it's on the other side of the building. But by now, the building has welcomed us just as much as we have put the building in our hearts. And not only in our hearts, but in all of the hearts that come by every single day. We have people visiting from all over Belgium, and we noticed that because of the building, not just because we are a bookshop, maybe too because we are a bookshop, but because of the building, we are picked up in Holland, and we are picked up in England, and we are picked up in France, and people just want to come in and see and feel. To me, it is especially to feel the house and to feel the building. By now, we know when somebody walks into our building, we know exactly where they are, just by the sound of the squeak of the stairs, and we know exactly what door opens, just because every single door has its own noise. We decided to change as little as possible, just to make the house function as a bookstore and make the house function as a home for my husband and my children. But we work together. The house works with us, and we work with the house. And that is what to us is the most important. And yes, there is paint falling down, and every time it rains, we kind of hold our hearts because we're not sure where the water will come in, because it is a huge house and it has a lot of windows. But we, for sure, are very happy to live in it, and we know we'll be living in it for many, many years to go. And a house is never ready. It wasn't ready when we came in, and we will not be ready when we go out. But we will have enjoyed it, every single second of it.
Thank you for this poetry. I couldn't think of any better lines to end this debate. But further, are there any questions from your side? Yes?
Can I ask the architect the question in the Transco building? You're cladding the outside of the building with glass. Now, your previous projects, you were doing an insertion inside. What's the reason for cladding the outside of the building with glass? Because that will hide the heritage from the outside, as opposed to you were doing an insertion on the inside in your previous project.
We had the idea to cladding the building because the construction is a steel construction. Fredrik will help me if I'm not right. It's a steel construction was filled up with bricks, and the bricks were very, very thin. It's about, I think, 9 centimeters or something like that. So during the time it was functioning, it was heated inside by the installation. But now it's not anymore like that. So the cost and the implementation and the effect of putting it without heating inside would give the construction such a damage. So it was the idea, if we could preserve it by putting glass over it, we could keep it in the situation that it is. We don't have to put isolation on it, we don't have to make it thicker, we don't have to need new bricks, take it out. So it's like the Saint-Exupéry put his cove over his rose. It's that idea we had. And it's a contemporary way of doing it, because it will be contemporary architecture who is around it. But this combination will give the strength to that what it inside, because it will be transparent. You will see the building like it was, and it will be an architecture who gives this protection who is of now. So it's not a nostalgic restoration of the situation. It's a very, very ambitious way of, and that I want to congratulate also administration sometimes, and we have a good experience that they go so far with us, because the idea came not from them, they came from us. And we said, if we could think about that, is this an idea? Could you live with that? Because maybe they only think they want to restore, make all the joints properly, make the window. No, they are going with us for many, many years, and searching for finance by government, by the city, by heritage administration, to find the budget to make it possible that we can do this idea about how can we conserve an old building with a very important history for this region, to bring it in a contemporary art to this solution.
Okay.
And this is a fantastic way of working together. So it's a partnership, but it's always difficult because they are not always sure that your meanings are honest. It could be for the gain, or with real estate people, to get more apartments, to make more money, and not to respect us. So by doing a lot of projects, my office is in an old factory at the city of Ghent. It's 500 square meters high, and I'm there. It costs nothing in the time. But I searched for a big space to have a lot of people to do good jobs, and they came to us because we respected it. And so you get confidence one in the other, and it's not to get over them. It's by doing together that you can find this solution.
Do you have solar panels on your?
We don't have solar panels because we have a low cost. I want to say, for example, the first hall I showed to you. If we should do their offices, we should have we use a lot of energy. But the function we chose is a function that don't need this energy. We just put a quarter of an hour before opening, we put air ventilation with some heating. But the function makes that we don't need all this energy. So sometimes function can also help you to conserve it, because if you put wellness in that building, it's stupid. It's stupid because your building is not made for that. But this evenement hall gives so many possibilities with a low cost of energy, with a low cost of restoration, but by good ideas, putting good circulation, putting functions in different places, that possibilities, for example, in the week, there is no evenement in the big hall, because there is nobody going to an evenement in the week. But in the weekends, well, in the week, you have the little spaces who are set for rent to people who want to have a dinner in the evening with a lecture like this. So we keep the balance of the economy also. But the choice of the function can help a lot to the cost of the project.
Thank you. Dennis, would ask you to make a wish. We're going to start with you, Adrian. Just keep it short if you want, because people want to see Kortrijk and they want to see that bookstore.
Well, my wish is always that if you start a project, you well define it and you find the best solution, as he did with his office. And there are 4 steps, I think, which are important. The first one is who is going to take the decisions and who is going to pay for it. That's the main question you have to solve. The second one is you have to develop software. What are you going to do with the building? What is its unique selling position, its USP? What are the values of the building? That's what he did also. And if you have defined it, then you are starting with the hardware. What do we need to change, or what don't we need to change? And afterwards you can sell it to the public. If we could, that's my wish, if we could follow these 4 steps in each project we develop, I'm sure we will have a lot of successes.
Thank you.
For me, I want to say 3 things. I think the way we are doing it now, I hope I can continue it with the project we are doing in this way. But I hope also that we give more possibilities to the young people, because like you told us, everything is changing very quickly. It will have an immense influence on everything we do. But I hope that the confidence that administrations, because they are always involved in this, give a lot of chances to young people. Because I believe in the dynamic of young people who come with the ideas where we have to do it in the next time. We live with our generation, but the new generation has also these possibilities. And I think in heritage, it's always difficult for young people to give this confidence to administration who decide. And so a lot of chances are not used what they propose. So that's very important. And one thing I want to say, that heritage for me, we do this about buildings now, we have not to forget the landscape. Because there are 2 landscapes. There's the urban landscape and there's the natural landscape. And the landscape is something we lose at the moment. And and I look at administration like Intercommunal, for example, one example, what is our view on the landscape with all these windmills, for example? Do we respect landscapes like they were? There are different landscapes. If you go to Scherpenheuvel, you have a landscape like that. If you go to Wachten de Kuppe, you have another landscape. These landscapes are also heritage. So I hope for this statement for landscape heritage.
Thank you.
The first is I hope that we are not an administration, but an organization that as an in-house system helps the communities, especially not just in renovating, building and sustaining the activities about heritage. But as I already told, the second part of our activities is focusing on landscape. So we will try to start in this year, a few moments, a few months, to focus on that. But first of all, I wanted to say that if it wasn't already there, I should have wished that there was a possibility to have this intermunicipality of heritage as it exists now, because I think it was needed, because a lot of local communities, and not the big ones, but the small ones, are not able to focus at the same way. And as we do together these things, share these things in very often, I would say, now it's possible to pay attention in the same way that we do about, for example, sites as Transnational recently, as the Vlasrol today in Kuurne and others.
It's a long wish.
I think, yeah, but I think it's important to see also that this kind of attention is also motivated by the fact that I see that the urban and rural development is now more structured by what we already have and conducted by the things we have, that by the things that we don't have. In the 60s we have to build up things and everything make place for it. So the heritage disappeared or was such the result of other decisions. Now I think heritage is more the base for the development, which can structure the direction of the development we can have in the future.
Thank you.
My dream is that we can accelerate out-of-the-box thinking for more heritage.
Thank you.
When I started 15 years ago in heritage, I think I saw it as quite, the way we were acting was exceptional, because the normal thing was you demolish a building and you build a new building. And if you have to maintain it, well, you should, and you have to, and you maintain it. I'm convinced that the way we are dealing with heritage today and in an open way, I think it's the future, because it's not more old-fashioned, but it's really, it's about recycling, it's about sustainability, it's about durability. So I think it's really modern, and I hope it will go that way.
The fact that I live and work in a house like the casino is more than I ever wished for. But if I have to wish something, it's two things. First, that we can use and implement our concept in the whole of the house, from the cellar to the attic. And the second one is that we will be able to preserve this building for the next generation. That's my wish.
And my wish already came true. I get to open the door every single day at 10 o'clock and welcome people in my house, which is one of the most beautiful buildings on Kortrijk in heritage.
Thank you. We give them a warm applause. So, have a nice day here in Kortrijk, and we will be happy to see you back in the future. Bye-bye.